You are watching Co-op for Two. I'm Jesse. I'm here with Greg.
Thanks for having me on your channel.
And today we're doing a top 10 list, sort
Well,
of.
you say we.
Yeah, we're doing it a little differently. Greg has cashed in his insubordination card and decided he's not going to...
Well, I mean, I'm primarily a solo gamer. And party games really are not part of the Co-op for Two thing. So it's absurd. It's absurd that I'm here, and it's absurd that this is on the channel. But
we're going to get Greg's reaction to my top party games.
Which for some reason is on this channel.
That's right. Well, they've got that same flavor of everyone joking and working together. So I'm gonna give mine. I'll talk about it a little. Sure. Greg will give his thoughts if he's played it or his reaction to the description of the game. If
I'm like a reaction video, you know, like which
it's like a half and half.
Why I don't understand why people watch videos about people reacting to things.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of. I'm not. If you like them,
if
great.
They've watched the channel, they know our
different
different tastes, and it will be interesting to hear our different takes. Okay, so but I should say, this isn't like. I would have a hard time putting these in a strict top 10 order. These are more like 10 great, a variety of
now
10
it's not even a top 10
great,
list.
It's true.
This is getting worse by the moment.
Well, I think that's a little secret of the YouTube videos. Like putting top 10 makes them watchable.
I think there is a whole science actually where they have to put something really good. If it's a top 100 in a magazine or something, they used to put them in the order to intentionally make you mad or to intentionally keep you going. That it wasn't a strict top 100 because everybody would just...
Okay, but this is more like a little variety. Like this is a great collection of 10. And pandemic's ending. I can't wait to play some of these with the groups. I can't wait to have people over at my house and play some of these games.
the game Pandemic. I was like, what do you mean Pandemic's ending? So just to be clear, it's Co-op for Two, but we're doing party games in a top 10 list. It's not a top 10 list, and one of us isn't doing our list.
That's right.
Got it.
Got it.
Okay.
Here we go. Number 10. How did we?
I synced it up with you. That was pretty good.
Yeah, there was a way we paused between this. Okay. Number 10 is a game that you've played. Do you want me to make these like little quizzes for you to guess?
I'm sure that's awful for the viewer, but
okay.
Maybe
but
not.
Yes.
I do.
Okay.
You're like, would you like to play a game within this thing? Of course.
Number 10 is a game that you have played at my house with a group of other people.
This is the one I saw on your list already. It's cheating. I know it. Sorry.
It's a dexterity game.
I know it. Yeah. Okay.
It's Junk Art.
Yeah.
And I love these dexterity games. Dexterity, maybe it's the wrong word for it.
It's perfectly the right word.
It's balancing, stacking things.
Using your dexterity.
Yeah, but there are a wide variety of dexterity games, and then there's a subclass of these balancing games. I really like them. They offer tension. They're fun with a group. And Junk Art is a very high production game. Beautiful. The pieces are cool. And it's got a bunch of different scenarios. You remember that? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's fun. Now, one thing about dexterity games in general, for parties or gatherings or whatever, is they're great for like non-gamers because or for all ages. You know, my nieces and maybe if I have like a family member that's mentally man, I couldn't even say that, so maybe I'm a good candidate for that. So it's good for like just a variety.
Yeah, you don't have to be a real gamer. It's more of an activity and fun.
Correct.
All ages.
And that game, I am a real sucker for like when there's like little scenarios type things in there. So that they didn't even need that, and yet they have that, and that's quite nice.
I do want to make a point, something we sort of brushed past, but I think is really important. One of the things that makes a party game a good party game, it's not just that it's not for non-gamers, it's that when you're bad, everyone still loves the enjoyment of watching that. And you enjoy being bad at it. That's a real difference between that and sort of you're playing a Euro game. It's not fun when you're bad and no one's laughing. But these, especially the dexterity games, it's fun when you mess up and you drop it. And Junk Art has those different scenarios. Some have more interaction than others. Some you're picking who has to put a thing. Some is multiplayer solitaire.
There was a little bit to the game that, I mean, I'm not going to do a full review of the game, but there are some things about it that I definitely did not like.
Oh, really?
There were some rules in it that I thought was like, if you've gotten I don't know, not to do it on a full review, but overall I did think it was like quite a fun game, pretty quick, and it has some, you know, it's good. Dexterity games I think are generally can be quite fun. It's good to have one in your collection for sure, one or two.
Okay, so Junk Art, that would be my choice of those games. But there are others. There's like one called Blocus, and then there's of course what's the Jenga is the common one.
Yeah.
They're all good, but this would be my choice.
I built a giant Jenga.
I've seen your giant Jenga. I've seen it. I wouldn't mind playing it at the party. Is that going to get broken out?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Vaccination party.
All right, number 9. Number 9 is a game I'm not sure we've talked about, but it's a famous game. It's got a bunch of expansions and it uses foam pieces inside it.
Bunch of expansions.
Bunch of expansions.
I don't
It's
know.
old. It's had some reprints. Foam Guns.
Oh, Cash and Guns.
Cash and Guns. Cash and Guns is a game that's a little bit of push your luck, a little bit of bluffing, but in each round there's some money to split up, basically. And everyone's got a gun in front of them. You can point your gun at someone. You might have bullets. You might not have bullets. There are different guns in the expansions. And it's a little bit of like bluffing, like, am I really going to pull the trigger? Everyone has a first time thing. Everyone simultaneously points their guns at someone else. And then you get a chance to put your guns down or shoot them. And I've played this with people that I didn't know, and it was a pretty cool icebreaker. Like you're pointing a gun at someone. It's kind of like you're laughing just at the weird experience of pointing a gun at someone you don't know. And I played these games with some mixed groups, some non-gamers, and they enjoy pointing the gun at the person they shouldn't be. Maybe some of them are pointing the gun at their wife and husband. Some are pointing them at the host, like you're all pointing it at the person who normally wins. So yeah, a very fun experience. A little bit of game in there, but not huge. Have you played it before?
Yeah, that's like, I like the idea of, it's like you're dividing up the loot after
bank
like a
robbers,
robbery. It's sort of like Reservoir Dogs or something. And being a fan of movies and stuff and action movies and things, it's cool to like be like, I just sometimes put my gun right against my friend's temple or whatever. But the gameplay itself I think is terrible. I did not enjoy it. I just thought it was like, I was like, oh, I had bullets, or I didn't duck, or I left the thing. It just was like, okay. I did not care. Like the game of it was like, I thought was not fun.
I can see that. I mean, that's a common theme in where we disagree sometimes. You're much more focused on gameplay. I'm much more focused on this unique, amazing
I think
experience.
if you take those foam guns out of the game, no one would have thought twice about the game.
I think you've got a point there, which is an interesting phenomenon. But it is interesting when you're pointing your gun at someone, they're pointing your gun at me and they're at you, and you're like, I'm going to shoot you. You better put down your gun.
Yeah.
And the other person's like, I'm going to shoot you. You better put down your gun. I have a bullet. You don't. There's some interesting little bluffing moments that feel like you're in a movie. Okay, but gameplay, I give it a little higher marks in gameplay than you, but I understand your point.
Yeah.
All right, Cash and Guns. A unique experience. Very few games like that. Similar where you're pointing weapons at people.
Sure. That part of it, yeah. I'll
Yeah. Okay. Ready for number 8? We're moving through these quickly.
Number 8.
Number 8. Number 8 is a family of games, one of which is like your number 2 game of all time.
Oh, wait. My competitively? The werewolf style?
Werewolf Family. I put them all in a class. Werewolf Family. I would not.
One Night Werewolf.
You
is
love
mine.
One Night Werewolf.
The other ones I don't like.
I would put One Night Werewolf towards the bottom. It's too chaotic for me. Regular Werewolf is up there. The Werewolf Legacy and Werewords.
Are you including? You're talking about like a huge genre of different. Are you talking about like Resistance as well? Do you include that in that, or are you just saying?
No, I put those separate. Those have a little more gaminess involved. This is more pure, like. Although One Night has a little bit of it, but the werewolf genre, where some people are bad, they close their eyes, they see who the bad ones are, and then they work together. And most of the game is arguing and debating, like, you're acting suspicious, I blame you, let's all vote to kill that person. So one of them is your favorite, and the others you hate.
One Night Ultimate Werewolf, I think, is a 10-minute time thing. Incredible. I love that game so much. You can just play over and over and over and over again. And there's like bluffing and accusing your friends and trying to deduce who the bad guys are. We played, the only time I ever played actual werewolf, because I would never play it because I don't want to have somebody run your game. I don't want to have somebody happen to
We
be
disagree about this too.
Yeah.
I like that.
And so I don't like that at all. Like I'm like, oh, which one of us doesn't get to play the game and have fun? Who's got to like clean up after? It's like one person is just designated driver, and the rest of the people are all drinking.
You could have both those games and say when we have 5 or less or so, we're going to play One Night. But if we have 10, you're not going to play One Night Ultimate Werewolf with 10 people. But you could play regular Werewolf with 10 and enjoy it.
Well, I came over here when we first met, and you had Werewolf Legacy, which I thought was awful.
I liked it.
I thought it was a terrible game. And I also don't like the player elimination part of it. That's not fun.
Yeah, but it's quick enough.
It's not quick enough. It's like a long game, I think.
Okay,
But
so you approve partially of
Sure,
the
I think
Werewolf family
you're
one
picking
night.
a whole genre of games. I mean, so I'm saying one of them is one of my favorite games of all time, and the others are I could not want to play.
Werewolf would be for a larger group. Werewolf does work, but there's a little bit of player elimination. So you couldn't use one night with 8 people,
Yes,
right?
you can. Yeah.
Really, you'd play it with 8 people? You
Yeah,
could technically.
No,
but
I
really
played with
sitting
it.
around
It's
a
actually
table?
it's actually really fun actually, because you can use some of the roles that like there's like some roles where like there's like Masons where you know the 2 Masons, like your buddy or whatever, or there's ones where there's different werewolf roles that you can kind of dole out. So it's actually gets quite interesting. I think 8 players is a quite good spot.
Okay.
I don't know if I go a lot higher than that, but you could and still enjoy it, I think.
Now, my favorite of that lot is Werewords, although that feels like a different game. But to me,
Yeah,
that's
it
like a
really is.
word game. That is, of all these, by far my favorite of all the Werewolf family, if you include it there. But that might be hard. You wouldn't play it with 8.
Include it there.
Yeah, I
It is
agree.
quite fun though.
I agree. You shouldn't include
It's very
it there,
quick.
but
It's like
for a
5
game,
minutes. It's like
it's
isn't
quick,
it time 5 minutes or something?
It's time.
It's so fast.
It's fast.
It is
and
fun.
it's clever.
Yeah, it's fun. I like it. It is clever.
Okay. Number 7. This is one of our
Fastest list we've ever
efficient
done.
videos.
Maybe on the weakest
But are
link,
you
on one
liking
that
it a
takes
little
longer.
better now? You know most of these games, even though you said, okay. Number 7 is a game that Greg does not like.
I'm
Greg
such a negative person.
Greg
right
is
now.
wrong about this one, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
Number 7 is Dixit. Dixit is a great party game, and the Odyssey, I think it's called, the version of Dixit called Dixit Odyssey plays up to like 12 people. It's simultaneous play. Everyone's got a hand of these beautiful cards. You take turns. When it's your turn, you say a word or a phrase, and everyone hands you a card in their hand that they think best matches that phrase. You mix it with yours. You spread it out, and everyone votes. Dixit Odyssey has these very nice voting cards. Everyone votes on which card they think it is. Then they reveal, and then you get points for everything they get. As long as someone got the word that was your card, someone picked your card, you'll get some points. You'll get more points for how wrong they were. If you gave a clue that was too good, too close to your card, that everyone get it, you'd get no points. Or too bad that no one would get it, you
If
get no
everyone
points.
gets it or no one gets it, you
No
get no
points.
points. So you want to get a mixed thing. So
Which
it
is a
keeps-
great little mechanic
Wonderful mechanic.
for keeping it balanced. And it's an activity and it's fun. And everyone is playing every round and everyone's saying, oh, it looks like that or it could be this. It's this fun thing where when you get something right, you're sort of connecting. I love this in these party games and team games where you feel like I'm on the same wavelength as you and we both got it. You're like having these little alliances. They're not official alliances for gameplay, but for fun, it's fun to be on the same wavelength with someone. And the cards are beautiful. It's just a fun activity. The rules you teach in 5 seconds. Anyone can play.
I would agree,
Any
yeah.
family member.
Yeah, like it's funny because Dixit I'll always remember because, we used to play role play and play like Hero Quest and all this like Axis and Allies and stuff quite a lot in my youth, and then I think there was a large span of time that went by, and then my friend got like 4 or 5 board games in the modern board. I think it was like 2006 or 7, although I'm really bad with the years, so I think that was it. And one of them was Pandemic, which was like instant in love with the board gaming, modern board gaming, and then one of the other ones was Dixit, and I thought it was quite fun. I really liked it, and I thought it was really neat and had a lot of neat stuff to it. And I felt like over the years, I kind of was like started seeing the cracks, and I was kind of like, man, I just don't really want to play that anymore. And so I was excited to see Mysterium kind of come on the scene, and I had some high hopes for that. You can watch our review on Mysterium Park and our playthrough of Mysterium Park if you'd like to find out a little bit more about that. But I just find like the actual gameplay not that thrilling to me.
Yeah, but again, I mean, one thing that a lot of these party games have in common is it's not like the
Accessibility.
core. It's not like the core gameplay is so enthralling. It's that you're playing with people typically that you don't spend that much time with. You want to have fun. You want it to be light. You want it to be accessible, any age, and you want to be able to carry on a conversation of life while this is happening.
Sure.
All right, number 6. Number 6. Number 6 is a game that made my top 10 cooperative. It's a detective game, but very suitable for playing while you're all sitting around the room just
Oh
talking.
my god. Well, no, whatever. It's not.
You're deciding how much you hate it for this list or
No,
how much it's
that's-
appropriate.
No, I mean, go ahead. You should tell
Number
me.
6 is Crack the Case. Crack the Case, which is the same as Black Stories, which is the same as the 15-minute mysteries. There are a whole bunch. In this game, you've got a whole bunch of these cards that describe a scenario. Like Jane was driving in her car, she crashed and died, a phone call was to blame. And then everyone else in the room just asks yes or no questions to try to get to the heart of what actually happened. So they might say, was the person who called trying to kill her? No. Was it an accident? Yes. And then, so just questions. It's completely free form. Anyone can just ask any question they want. Sometimes they'll say, I can't answer that. And then eventually they figure it out. They're eventually like, oh, they'll ask a question like, was it poison? Yes. And they're like, and everyone looks around the room like, oh, it was poison. And then they ask other questions. They get stuck. It's just, everyone can sit wherever they want, just shout out questions when they want. If they don't feel like getting involved, they just hang out and listen, and then they jump in. You don't love it as much as I do.
No, I think it's great. Okay, so number 1, I think it's great. I love that. I think it's especially great for a road trip if you have a number of people in the car.
Car, camp
Great
trip,
camping
fantastic.
trip.
Uh-huh.
This is the same. I'm going to give you the same guff I did one on our other list, which is that it's not really a game. I think if you're playing a game, and I say, okay, great. How do you win, Jesse? Well, I get my pawn to this side. Cool. How do I win? You don't. You can't win. Is
Yes,
this a game?
I think-
no. It's not. It's an activity.
I agree. You could play it as a game by saying whoever figures it out first gets it, but I agree that that's not the whole point of it. And
So I think it's fine. I think it's great. I think definitely get it, especially if you're going on a long car trip and you've got some people in the car that like to do stuff like that. I think it's fun, regardless. Like in the things that you mentioned or whatever. I would consider it to be an activity though. Rather than
yeah, more of an activity than a game, but it
Definitely
feels like
check it
a
out.
real challenge where you're trying to figure things out. You are challenged.
Oh, for sure. And it's like it's like this person fell out. It's like they died. You could say, okay, well, could they have died this way? And of course, yes, they could have died. But you're not trying to find.
You're not trying to win per
You're
se,
trying to figure out the
but-
exact thing.
Right, but you know what? I think it's easy to underestimate how much skill and how much sort of lessons in deduction and figuring things out are involved in this game. You do have to approach it with a certain mindset. Some people are going to be better than others. Some people are constantly trying to guess the answer, and you're much better off trying to like figure out how to cut down possibilities in half.
think
It's
it's
actually
very good.
quite intellectually challenging. And I think there should be a whole special class of games that you can play with people spread out sitting wherever they want. And this is one of the very few games in that class.
I think there's that new one too. Like it's all on your phone. The mystery of it's like that we saw in the game shop was something about some girl going missing or something.
Huh, I don't
we
remember
should-
what one that is. Okay, my next one is a very famous
What number?
number 5. Number 5 is a very famous team-based game that has some spin-offs. It is Codenames. Codenames is a great party game. However many people you have in the room, you just divide them in half, put one on one team, one on the other, and everyone's involved. Everyone's laughing, talking, trying to give clues. You do have one person who's the clue giver on each team. They see from a whole set of cards that have words on them, or pictures if you're playing the pictures version. They can see which words they're trying to get their teammates to guess, which word is an assassin. Or there's no assassin in regular Codenames.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. There is an assassin in regular Codenames.
It's one of the cool little hooks to it.
Yes, you're right. And you give a clue, you give a one-word clue and a number, and your teammates try to figure out which words you're directing them to, and you take turns. But everyone gets involved. This is one of the surefire games. Everyone loves this game. Would you not agree?
So I think the game is fantastic. It's a password. It's like an updating of like that password idea. It's phenomenally like what's the word we always use when something is like simple?
It's a modern classic, elegant.
But elegant. It's very elegant.
Yes,
It is a modern classic. It's a fantastic game. It's very, very fun. It's fairly quick. It can dominate a lot of people. The only thing I would say about Codenames is everybody's like,
I know what
you
you're
can
gonna
play it
say.
with everyone, and I
I
think
know you're
that's
gonna say.
absolutely not true.
It's-
I found that anytime I try to play with non-gamers, they cannot wrap their head around the concept, and I try to explain it very simply, and like other people, I don't like. I remember like it just. It does. But
You
my
could
family,
get
my
some-
family, my wife's family, they're not gamers, and they have a hard time. Like that, forget it. Was not very good for them. They'll basically be like, they only give one clue. They're like,
Okay, so there's two. You're absolutely right. There's some ages and groups that aren't going to quite get it. When they're on the team guessing, that does not as bad as long as you have one player on that team that's sort of like directing them. But it is true that playing the person who gives the clues does require a much higher level of comfort with games and strategy. Otherwise, they'll spend an hour, or they won't be able to come up with good clues, or they'll say this one, and you have to explain to them you can't win the game. And they do get stuck. It's also one of those games where one person has to come up with clever clues, and you could get people who are uncomfortable playing that role or feel lost when they get in that role. So that is true.
I think I would agree with your ranking and everything of a great party game, but I would put the caveat. I think, and I know that many people would disagree with me, and that's fine. That Codenames is the kind of game that you play with gamers.
I think that's a good point. It's a party game for gamers.
I would agree with that's how I would.
I would
put it.
agree with that. But if you have half your group is non-gamers, they'll do fine playing the guessing role on a team. They'll do absolutely fine as long as there are enough other people, gamers, to be the one giving clues.
Sure.
All right. Number 4 is a game that I think was on Greg's top 1 or 2 co-op games. He gives it a different name, but the official name, one of the official names it's most well known by, number 4 is Time's Up, otherwise known as
The Hat Game.
or monikers. And why don't you explain how this game works?
Okay.
Explain the modern way, the 3-stage.
Sure. So you have a stack of cards, so you have a big stack of cards, and you'll split into teams. You can split into, for the sake of argument, we'll say 2 teams. And so if I were you can say anything you want. You're trying to get the person inside of a minute or so to guess as many of your cards as you can, and then you just keep going. And then when the time stops, that's however many points you got is how many things. Yeah, right. Now essentially, you can only get. You can say anything you want. You just can't say the words that are on the thing.
For round 1, you say any words you want.
And then the next time you do it, you'll essentially do it like you say one word. You can only say one word, and that's it. And then they get one guess. Or the other round, you can go as many as you want, but you can pass. And then the third round is is a charades kind of variant.
That's right.
But every time you go through the deck, people are familiar with what's in there, and so you'll have sort of these callback jokes in the later rounds that you'll be Brown, and they'll be like, oh, it's this, because they know that was a joke or whatever.
Because you already saw that card the first time,
But it's wonderfully fun to just go, So, and it's fun to be clever about how you give the clues, right? So I'm totally stealing Jesse's.
No, that's fine. I mean,
you could be like, which kind of first president. First president.
George Washington.
Boom. Okay. This is. I'm not really sure what this is. So not one, but
2.
okay. Not a bottle, but a
Can.
okay. And then Uncle.
Sam.
Yeah. So put them together.
It was bottle.
Two
Can-
cans.
can
Sam. Two cans.
Sam.
Sam. So if you don't know it, you can kind of sound.
And there are some gamey elements to it.
That's
Some of the
super gamey.
versions have different points for the different cards.
Oh, really?
And you're pass or go to the one that you think you can get the most points with. And deciding when to pass is an interesting gamey element. And it's got.
But you can't pass in the first round. That's the part that's.
That's right. And it's so quick that it's not it scratches that itch of charades, and there is a charades round, but most of it is not charades, but it's so quick, it doesn't overstay its welcome. You're swapping out, you're taking turns giving the clues, or just being in the team.
Yeah, I think that game is just incredibly good, and it's we had played a version called the Hat Game, which my friend Kat would just we would all spend the first 30 minutes, all of us just writing on slips of paper as many different literary or famous or historical or people we just knew, and we would just be putting them all in this hat, and then you'd mix them all up, and that would be the length of the game. We didn't know about the other 2 rounds at that point, and so that could be
I like the multiple rounds thing, especially because, as you point out, When you get to that third round of your acting out, you've already seen the cards, so you know what the set is. So the acting out isn't as involved. You're just doing like the one thing that reminds them of the multiple choice of the cards they saw before. So it makes it less. It makes the acting charades less burdensome, less time consuming.
So
But sorry, why don't you make
no,
your point? Well, I did want to say this does have the same problem that the Codenames problem you pointed out was, which is that it is harder for people who don't know these trivia things. Like if you're dealing with someone who's not up on cultural references and movies, and you've got these cards that are books and movies, it can be much more difficult.
I would agree, but I think for the most part, it's a pretty good. We've actually played this with my wife's extended family and stuff, and they now have it as like a bit of a tradition for their reunions and stuff. So it's actually, I think it's a very like it helps to get past non-gamers and stuff too. There is a weird version that's a very similar sort of a spin-off version of it that's on a phone. We were online at like Six Flags or something, and like you put. It's sort of like headband,
yes.
but you like when you get it right, you flip your phone like that, and then it goes to another name.
Yes.
And you're essentially just playing cooperatively, actually. So this is finally a. If
You
listed
can't
that, it would
see
belong
what
on
the
this
other
channel.
people can see, and they're seeing it and giving you clues,
Yeah.
and you're trying to guess.
But you're playing in the same way you would play the hat game, and so it's a way to play. Excuse me, Time's Up. So it's a way to play Time's Up cooperatively, which sort of fits the
that
motif
could be
of this
fun.
channel
I've not
now.
played
So
that.
we've actually gotten relevant to this channel.
I'm curious about trying that. I'm curious about trying that. But okay, so Time's Up. Number 4. All right. Number 3 is. So here's the pause. Okay, number 3.
This is the
I don't
pause?
know. This is
the
where
pause?
the video edit of the big 3 comes in.
But you were telling this is the pause, and then you put a 3 down there. That's
I don't know what I was doing,
I love it.
but it's
I don't know what it is, but I love it.
okay. Number 3 made my top co-ops, but it's more of a
I know
party
it is.
game. What is it?
No, it's not a game, probably.
Yeah, it's not a game. It's more of an activity, but it's one of my favorites. One of my favorite experiences. Number 3 is Concept. Concept is a giant board with colors, symbols, concepts, quantities, like 100 different little icons. And you'll take turns being the person who looks at a clue. There's an easy clue, a medium, and a hard one. Like, say, maybe it was America.
It's America.
Then you'd get your pawns, and you try to convey that concept not by talking at all, but just by putting things. So you might put a pawn on the red, the white, and the blue. You might put a pawn on a sort of a thing that looks more like locations. You might put a thing, and then people are trying to guess as you're doing it. And maybe if you hear what they're saying, they're going in the wrong path. You might say, okay, it's not this. You've got some main pawns and sub pawns. You can say like, this is a green concept. So there's main concept and the subordinate concept for green, and then use blue for this.
Essentially, if you're trying to get them to guess like the Old Man and the Sea, the book, right? You would have one concept that's all like the blue cubes and the blue exclamation point that's trying to get Old Man, and then you have a green that's trying to get them to get the sea part of it, right? So like, it's a way to divvy it up.
And it's a very intellectual game where you're trying to think, how do I convey this concept? Sometimes they're book titles, sometimes they're quite complicated, sometimes they're easy. You can pick. And it's that pleasure of getting on the same wavelength as someone when you're watching and you're trying to get what they're trying to say. They're adjusting as they go. It's very intellectual. How do I convey this concept? And sometimes the most enjoyable part is when you get something like, how could I possibly get you to guess this? And then you're like thinking, well, maybe here. And it's when you get on the same wavelength as someone.
Here's a little pro tip. I think usually you get a card and you just pick one on the card. I think that's how we played it before. And like when you look at it, pick the hardest one because those are the ones that are enjoyable. Like the easy ones, not fun. I don't think. I think the harder ones are more interesting because it gets more interesting for you and for the.
Now we should say this is like a house rule thing. The official rules talk about setting into teams and guessing. Like I just throw that right out the window. Play it just as taking turns giving clues. The way we do it when we want to keep score is when you give a clue and they guess it, you get a light bulb, and the person who guessed it got a light bulb, and go around that way. I've played it before where we play like one round of easy, one round of medium, then one round of hard, but this is a game to house rule. It's more of an activity than anything. But I love just like setting this up. You could set this up in a party, and when people want to go hang out and play it, they can. You could play one round, whatever. You don't have to keep score, just an activity. But you agree, it's an amazing experience.
No, I think it's really fun. It's cool. like I do. I think it's really a really clever thing, and I think we mentioned this in the cooperative game list, where like this shop is somewhere would like they put the board and they'd make a thing, and then like when you went by, looked in their display window, you would try to figure out what that was as a puzzle, because it makes like a nice little puzzle. So you could see like where if you had like an Instagram channel or something, and you put one every day, and somebody tried to figure out what it was.
That's a nice idea.
It's pretty neat. I mean, that's kind of a cool thing about it, which
Yeah. All right.
Not a game.
We're almost done. Well, it's enough of a game. Number 2 is a game. It's come out in a couple versions. It's one of my favorite, well, obviously number 2, it's one of my favorite party games, but this is a real game. Very suitable to play in teams. It's got a gambling element to it. Do you know what it is now?
Oh, I know what it is. It's that North Star Games does it, kids. That's where you have, I know what it is, but I can't think of the name of it.
Wits and Wagers.
That's it. Yeah.
Wits and Wagers, which kickstarted a nice big version with a big neoprene mat. Wits and Wagers is a great little twist on trivia games that makes it, and this is the clever part about it, so it's not that important whether you know the answer. Basically, the board is almost like a roulette betting line. So it's got like...
and use poker chips.
Every team or every person's got some money to bet with. They'll bet over a series of questions. A question will be read. It'll be something like number of cars sold in America in 1999. So everyone will write down what they think the answer is, or every team. Then you'll turn it over, and you'll lay these out. Yeah, you'll lay out the answers that people guessed.
I thought you did it. The version I had. I thought you did it in real time, so you could be like, "Well, Jesse."
This is coming up next. Everyone answers. Then you lay out those answers, and then you lay them out in order. So like the largest or smallest answers are off to the side, and they pay off bigger odds. And the most common answers are in the middle, pay off less odds. Like that may pay 1 to 2, whereas the most extreme answer might pay 1 to 10. Now you see everyone's answer, and I can see Greg thought that this many cars were sold, and my other friend who's at the party who works in the car industry guessed here. So then you get this simultaneous betting where you can bet it doesn't have to be what you guessed originally. You're betting on which answer you think is correct, nearest, but you're also taking into consideration the odds. Like maybe this is not as likely, but it pays such good odds. And you can bet 1 chip, or you could bet lots of your money. And you get points in the end for being right, for being the person who guessed it right, but mostly for putting your money. And you watch people, like you might watch the person who knows where they put their money and change your money. And there's some real strategic elements going on about like, I don't know, so I'm not going to bet any money on this round. Or I really know, so I'm going to put my money where I know the answer is. And then you read the answer and pay off all the bets. It really satisfies that gambling itch, that quick money itch. It satisfies the interaction of players, watching where they go, making fun of them. You get a little fun when you turn off everyone's answers, and you're like, you thought basketball was invented in 1975.
What I remember is like how far away the moon is.
But even if you have no idea what you're answering, it's fun.
It's not a trivia game. It's like has nothing to do
a tiny bit.
But I mean, like it doesn't matter. Like if you know the answer or not, it doesn't matter, because once the answers come out, you're just trying to. It's like, I think, in a nutshell, like trivia games to me are not fun because you either know the answer or you don't, and that's it. And so, what some successful games, I hope this isn't on your list, America the Game.
No, it's not. But I would put that in the same category
America
as
the
this.
Game, Fauna, those types of games.
That's right. Timeline
and Wits and Wagers. What they essentially do is they just make it so that you can use clues and sort of say, well, I think I know this much and I know this much, so therefore I think the best bet is going to be this thing, right? And so it doesn't say, well, you know it or you don't know it. It just means that like you can try to like just use what you know to get you closest.
And you're using what you know of the other players around you are betting on.
Yeah, so I think like that's the best, like a very good trend in trivia games.
Yes, absolutely.
Which I hope continues. Absolutely. To get away from that. Just like, do you know it? No. Okay.
I agree completely. And Wits and Wagers for me is the best one. It strikes has all those exciting moments, Plus, the gambling element is so fun. You're like, I'm sure, let me put all my money here, and then someone's watching you.
I think 2 points to make about this game.
Okay.
Number one, I think it falls into the somewhat of that code names problem where like non-gamers, that sort of that the way that you bet your chips and the multipliers, that can be a bit much for non-gamers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be playing that with my mom or like my wife's family or something like that. I don't think those are.
A
That just
gamer
gets to
will
be-
do better. I agree
gamer's
with
going to
that.
do better. And the other thing is that it's kind of cool is that a lot of people play this as like a game show, where they like play with teams of people where it's not everybody, like you work in like groups of 5 or whatever, and you have like a big board, and so that's a pretty
interesting.
cool, fun, like, so you could accommodate like
Large number. I like
even
small.
a large
teams
number
of two works well. But,
Sure. Or just solo. Everybody heads up, which is fine. But like, I'm just saying, it's like one of the cool things about that you could play it in a grand scale version. You could see
Yes, you could.
This could even be like a game show you saw on TV and people
yes,
watched it at home,
absolutely.
which is pretty neat.
All right. Talking about it so much makes me remember how much
you
I
wanna
love
do-
it. That's almost like my number. That's almost like my number one. That could be number one for a gamer. Okay.
Number one. I'm just doing.
Well, that's like it's to pause us so I can insert the graphic. All right, number one. My number one party game only edges out Wits and Wagers because it solves the problem that you've been pointing about who you can play it with. This is truly a game that you can play with anyone, any group of people. You could play, if you buy the right box of this, up to 12 people. It's
Jeff one of ours.
No, it's guaranteed laughter and fun. Doesn't require skill.
Oh,
In
I
fact,
know what it is.
the worse you are, the more fun it is. You do know what it is? Why don't you give number?
I'll say it. Does it start with a T?
That's right. It
Yeah,
starts
please
with a
do.
T.
Yeah, good. It's number
Okay,
one.
so number one is Telestrations, which is a drawing game. There are a bunch of drawing games, but Telestrations is the most pure and the most elegant. Everyone gets a little booklet. You could play this with pad. You don't even need to buy anything.
I played it a number of times. And I've never played it with the
play it with
official
paper.
version. Just
The
paper and
official
pen.
version is nice because it has these tab sheets. It makes it harder to mess up. But basically, everyone gets a card. It tells them the concept that they're going to be drawing first or writing first. They'll flip it up and they'll draw. Like, let's say maybe I'll get an airplane, people boarding an airplane. So I will try to draw that. I'll draw that. I'll flip it over. Everyone will get a different card and everyone will draw their picture. And then we'll pass it to clockwise. When Greg gets that, he'll look at the picture and then he'll try to write the concept he sees, the words. Like he'll write an airplane landing. He'll flip it over and he'll pass it. The next person just looks at what Greg wrote, an airplane landing, and tries to draw that. So it alternates. Every person is passing along. That's right. It's telephone with drawings. They're looking at a picture and writing a description, or looking at a description, drawing the picture. But what happens is, as it moves along, it drifts and changes. And when it hits someone who's a bad artist, it could change quite dramatically. The next person might see that picture of an airplane and say it's a bird with a runny nose. And it goes around.
And then the next person will draw a bird with a runny nose.
That's right.
And what's really, I'm sorry.
Well, it goes around till you get your own book back. So it's passed through everyone. Each book has passed through everyone. And then when it gets back, the game ends. And you just show off how it changed and laugh. There's no winning.
To
There's
me,
no losing.
The fun is like, is to read the first sentence and the last sentence. To me, that's the most fun because you just see how you're like, it's like, the fire truck is red, and then like the thing is like pterodactyls like eating children or whatever. You know, it's like what it's like, and you have a lot of laughs from that. It isn't quite a game, by the way. Yeah.
It's not a game. There's no scoring, but you could play with the 80-year-old. I played it with my father and my little niece. Everyone laughs.
Great for kids.
It's impossible,
Great for kids.
especially for kids. It's impossible for there not to be some laughter.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you'll get some that are like, whatever, it stayed the same. But it's impossible not to be like, here's where it went wrong. Here's the picture someone drew. And everyone's like, how could you draw that? Or why would you do that?
So this goes great for your list of like, or not your list, but your things that you like where you can easily transport it. Because I played this like you could play it at the bar. You're all like having a pint or something and hanging out, and you're like, oh, you're sitting at a table, and just for fun, you could like if it's like it's a slow night or something, and you can like pass it around, or you could be at a restaurant like or something, or like okay kids, the food's we ordered our food and let's like play a quick round of this. It's the kind of thing where like there's a lot of places and areas that you can play this, you know, and it's very flexible, I should say.
Yeah. It's an activity. It's fun. You don't have to be good at it.
You can explain it
The worse
like
and the worse you are at drawing, the more entertaining it is.
I think like in my head it feels almost like a Mad Libs type thing. You know what I mean? Where it's kind
Yeah.
of like just that silly like.
Yeah, you're getting the laughter and the fun out of things going wrong or not quite.
Absolutely. Is there a word for that?
I don't know. That's a great question. The
What do you do
fun
every
of
time I do
things-
that? Boop. Do you put the boop in?
If you watched our videos, you'd see that one of the times I did. I forget what it was about though.
Okay.
So there is my top 10 party experience games and Greg's reaction to them. You knew every single one. There wasn't a
So
single game.
there's an ironic piece there where like I'm just a solo gamer, yet I actually have played every single.
That's right. You
So
played them all.
out of your 6 games, your top 6.
You mean the last top?
No, I mean 6. So you had 3 that were not games.
Oh, God,
You had
here we go.
you have 1 that was a genre of games. So leaving those aside,
family, not genre. Family.
family of games, sure, family of games. So out of those other 6, I have played all the 6. Yes.
You actually counted how many you would call actual games? Is that 6 a real number?
Concept, Crack the Case, and Telestrations are not games, and Werewolf is a family of games that you
I
selected.
see. Okay, wow.
So,
yeah.
and you included Werewolves in there, which is not even in that family, really, just as Werewolf in the title. But,
Yeah, I would agree.
So,
Well, no, it's not. That's not the only connection, but I agree. It's a different thing.
yeah. So out of those,
Okay. Well,
got to give them a hard time a little bit.
but it was you knew you've played most of them. They're you would agree as a set they're pretty great though.
Yeah, I do think I think it did some good stuff. Obviously, I gave my opinions. I'm glad that you enjoy those games. Some of them obviously weren't for me, but I think overall that was a pretty good list.
Yeah, and I can't wait to play some of these. I want to play Wits and Wages right now. I'm remembering how nice that was. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this. Shorter than our usual video.
It
Well-
was.
Okay, and we'll see you next time. Bye. The statistical number of
I
crazy
just, like-
people. If you
Boring.
broadcast something to 100,000 people,
You're talking to the camera like we're
I'm
not
just saying,
doing anything with this.
If you broadcast something to
Well, I
100,000
tell you
people,
that's important for me to say that you're not doing anything with this.
I'm not doing anything. But if you
Whoa,
it could be
let's hear it
could be an outtake.
because you're no. See, that's why I'm saying no. This is just us talking.
All right, but I mean,
You didn't instill me with confidence.
but what
saying,
do
all
you
right.
what are we talking about? That
Okay,
you're
a minute
afraid to
ago,
have
you're
on
like
camera?
the word really versus
I'm
like.
just saying, like, what about this discussion couldn't be on camera?
I
an outtake.
wasn't prepared. I mean, I don't want everything I say to ever be like.
I'll run it by you. I'll give you that guarantee. If for some reason I think I want to use something here in an outtake, I will run it by you, get your permission before I put it. Is that good enough?
That sounds good. 13.
Because sometimes more often than not, you're too far that way. Like I've watched some of the videos and I'm like encroaching way over here and you're way
Is
over
that
there.
right? Maybe I'm moving over here because you're over the line.
Yeah, it might be my
You
fault.
yelled at me for being too close to the line.
Well, you were too close to the line at that point.
You
But
can't-
I'm not
you
saying
can't-
always.
You can't yell at me for being too close to the line and then being too far on this side.
Yeah, sometimes you're too far away.
Do you wanna, like-
Sometimes you're too
Well,
close.
you know
You're
what? We'll
not
get some
aware
Velcro-
enough
we'll get
of
some
the line.
Velcro,
I need
and
to
then
put a
I'll-
center
and then I'll
line for you.
stick
That's what I'm
my
gonna do. I'm gonna
hands
make
here.
a center line for you so you can just watch your own line and stay centered to it. Ready? I felt something hit me. Come on, Greg.